Your subconscious mind doesn't lie. What image cycling helps you do on the forefront is get really clear on what you want. And I mean, Candace, your true heart's desires, not your ego-driven, what I think I want. And this is a very important distinction because I've been teaching goal setting. I've written books about it. I've been teaching all this stuff. And yet there are always those goals that clients would come in with and we're like, there's just like, I can't, like it will not happen. Well, deep down, is this really a heart's desire? Because it could be a subconscious block, but it also could be like, is this something you really actually want? You might think you want it on paper and then you don't.
I'm Candace Rudardi. This is Gratitude Geek, the podcast for pioneering women who understand that gratitude is a business strategy. Joining us today is 5-time best-selling author and business growth expert, Ursula Mentjes. Today we are chatting about aligning your subconscious to your true desires. Welcome, Ursula.
Candace, thanks for having me. It's so fun. We've been having a conversation before a conversation, so this is going to get interesting. We're like, we got to just start the show.
I know, and we should have been recording before, but oh
We
well.
should have.
I know. So what would you like the audience to know about you?
I'm a farm girl from southern Minnesota, which a lot of people find kind of interesting because by how I look, they don't think that for whatever reason. I don't know. But anyway, I grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota, loved every bit of it, learned the value of hard work. Not a big farm though, Candace. It was a little farm where you just made enough to eat and survive. We were on food stamps at the time. I grew up in the 80s. So like we always thought the farm was going to go under and there's a lot of survival stuff going on, but I loved being outside. Not necessarily in the winter, but loved the animals, loved the spirit of farming. And what I didn't know is in a lot of ways, it was preparing me to have my own business someday. Because when you understand the value of discipline and hard work and getting things done, having a business is a little bit easier down the road. So that's where I started. Those are my roots. And I'm back here. I had quite a trajectory. I don't know how much you want me to share. I had a trajectory of going from being in outside sales to running a $20 million company to being transferred to California to launching my own company out there, coaching company, sales coaching and training. And then we had our first son when I was 40, our first and only, which he's very glad about, by the way, at 40. And then we moved back to Minnesota to be closer to family. So moved the corporation back here.
The family farm is a concept that is slowly going away, but there is so much value in it. Like my Uncle Johnny, whose wife Dorothy is who I named my daughter after, he was a farmer. And even when he lived in a city, he had a garden. Uncle Johnny and Dorothy grew all their own food and canned it so that all winter long, they were just eating from their garden. So that's one lesson that you can learn from farming, a family farm. But what other business lessons did you learn growing up on a farm?
Yeah, I will say, I just want to touch on it. My parents divorced when I was 5, and then my mom moved about 15 minutes away, also got a 7-acre little hobby farm and gardened. So I to this day, my mom is still living. My dad passed away this year, but my sister has the family farm. My mom has the other farm, and I still am blessed by organic gardening. And my mom just taught my niece how to can, and so I'm constantly getting all this beautiful food. And I do think, well, that's a whole other conversation. But if you don't have your health, like what do you have? And so doing the best that you can to take care of it nutritionally, obviously very important. What did I learn on the farm in terms of business lessons? It's kind of like, what didn't I learn, right? Like I would say the number one lesson is the value of discipline. My dad was not only a farmer, he was a German military farmer. So that meant if you were on time somewhere, you were already late. We were the people that would get to church at 15 minutes ahead of time and sit in the same pew. No one would have sat there anyway. It was just a tiny little church. No one sat in anybody else's spot. You know what I mean? But we had to be there early. We were always early. So I learned the value of respecting other people's time. I learned the value of managing time, how much you can get done in a day. I learned the value of having a long vision. On the farm, you plant fields that you're going to harvest in 5 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. And then you're dealing with the elements and you're dealing with everything else. And you plant with a prayer in mind, right? And so many lessons, but I would say those were some of the most valuable.
Before we move away from farming, I want to talk about rotating crops. Okay, I'm not a farmer. My dad did grow up on a cattle ranch, but he's the he's the cowboy, not me, right? But rotating crops, I think, is another interesting concept that can be applied to business. Do you have thoughts on that?
First of all, I wanna say people don't rotate crops enough, and then they wonder why their field like, so people don't know why, you would rotate a crop, because I didn't, I had to learn this on the farm, is because of the nutrient value of different things. So if you have corn one year and then you have soybeans the next year, you're gonna have different nutrients that are put in the ground that, the other plants will enjoy and appreciate, and they'll flourish. And so, I mean, in business, I guess changing things up, it definitely can be applied to marketing. I'm constantly rotating, but I don't necessarily change what we're offering all the time, but I'm rotating what we're offering to keep people interested for sure.
And you keep dripping your nutritious thought processes on them, right? You're
Yeah,
dripping nutrients on them, nutrients for the brain. The rotating the crops thing, it's a concept that I think more people need to understand because stagnation kills. You need to constantly be learning and renewing and fertilizing and understanding what complements each other.
I think a lot of farmers are lucky if they rotate 2 kinds of crops just because they're kind of limited based on their machinery, what they can offer.
Mm.
But sometimes 2 things are put into what we call idle acres, where the government pays you just to keep something idle because there's too much corn or something like that. And that's good for the land too, because it just gets to rest for a little bit and just have some grass on it, some local grasses. It's a really powerful concept. I've never thought about it in terms of business, Candace. So you got me thinking.
I grew up in the Salinas Valley of California, which is very heavily agricultural. I mean,
Mm,
to get to college, drove through lettuce fields.
yeah.
To get to high school, I drove through strawberry fields. We had artichoke fields everywhere. We were the artichoke capital of the world. I saw crops rotating all the time, and it really, first of all, you learn to understand and appreciate how hard these farmers work for us to provide us with food, but you also watch what they do to the soil and how they manage it and everything. So I appreciate farmers, and especially the small family farms. So,
Yeah. And we need to protect them. So,
yes, kudos to your family. Okay, so let's talk about mindset
mm,
or subconscious. Subconscious. So I signed up for your email list, and this morning I got an email from you that said, studies show your brain can actually predict a decision up to 11 seconds before you're even aware of it.
yeah.
Talk about that.
So let me give you a little bit of my background first. My major in college was psychology. I was so fascinated by the mind. And then later I got a master's degree in more psychology. And then I got certified through the NLP Institute of California in Northern California in neurolinguistic programming, which really dove deep into like, why do people do what they do? Why do certain people look like success is so easy while other people really seem to struggle? And that's when I started to learn about the subconscious mind. And let me also preface this by saying I don't think we know anything about the subconscious mind yet. I think we know very, very little. I think we know some things, but I don't think we do. I think it's interesting, the study where they tracked people's brains and their brain waves and could see that 11 seconds before they were like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, they'd already decided, which tells us the subconscious mind is working all the time and it's really running everything. So, whatever your subconscious mind is programmed with, those are the actions that you're going to take, whether you want to or not, which explains so much, right? Because if anyone who's listening has ever had a goal that they just couldn't make happen and you're frustrated as heck about it, well, this explains why. It's really not your fault. Now, the subconscious mind also keeps us very safe. That's its job. Subconscious mind, 24/7 is like, how do I keep Ursula safe? How do I keep Candace safe? Like, it's there. It's like, this is my job. This is my job. It's very excited to help you, right? I always think of my subconscious mind. Makes you think that movie. What's that movie? We took our son about feelings. There's anxiety.
Oh, yeah,
It's not,
my daughter's too old for that. Hold on. What is that movie called? That
it's
doesn't
not,
matter. It'll be in the show notes, y'all.
people are like, somebody's yelling it right now. But it made me think of that movie of just how, the chemicals in our body, shoot things off and the neurotransmitters go off and then we're making decisions that become habits, habits that become our results. So it's like, oh, that's great, Ursula. Thanks a lot. So now how in the heck do I change that? And I've spent years studying that. Now, NLP has helped quite a bit. NLP, what I love, and I think NLP, neurolinguistic programming, has gotten a bad rap because we hear, certain people in the industry who use it for bad purposes and whatever. And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that goes on that's not great for people, right? But, and the thing I learned through NLP is how to shift a limiting belief or a belief that's not serving you, how to discover it and how to shift it. And once I understood that, I realized that's kind of like peeling out the core in your subconscious mind so you can act from a new belief. right? And so that was kind of like my introduction into really how to shift it. And then just since then, I've just, studied and studied. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and how he studies brain waves and, how the chemicals in our brain, the neurotransmitters lead to us making decisions. And then about a year ago, and this is what you're getting to, Candace, the email you got today, I discovered something called image cycling, which basically helps leapfrog the subconscious mind. And here's the thing, your subconscious mind doesn't lie. And what image cycling helps you do on the forefront is get really clear on what you want. And I mean, Candace, your true heart's desires, not your ego driven, what I think I want stuff. And this is a very important distinction because I've been teaching goal setting. I've written books about it. I've been teaching all this stuff. And yet there are always those goals that clients would come in with and we're like, there's just like, I can't, like it will not happen. Well, deep down, is this really a heart's desire? Because it could be a subconscious block, but it also could be like, is this something you really actually want? You might think you want it on paper and then you don't. So here's an interesting example that I've experienced with image cycling. I now have 2 coaching companies. I have a business partner. We own a coaching company that focuses mostly with construction companies in Utah. And then I have this company, my own company, where I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who are around 250,000, 300,000, want to break 1 million. The other company is multi-million dollar companies going to the next level. So on my image cycling list, I put something in there about company growth, but I wasn't specific enough. And sure enough, one of the companies started growing really fast. And the other one started to stagnate. And I was a little bit like, what? But the stagnation part was something I needed to look at because, Candace, I needed to change something in my own company. There was a reason we had like slowed down and I wasn't selling a certain thing. And I was like, Ursula, you need to be honest with yourself. And so it was picking up on my subconscious mind, that one goal not being my true heart's desire. And once I got really clear on that, it shifted. So it's a great tool for clarity, but it's a great tool for also really forcing you to see if it's your true heart's desire. And if it's your true heart's desire, then your subconscious mind is in alignment with it.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if your true heart's desire, I'm using a really random
Hmm?
example. If your true heart's desire is that you can go on vacation 3 times a year, getting to the going on vacation 3 times a year can take a lot of different forms.
Yes.
So sometimes all you need to realize is, hey, I just want more time freedom.
Yes.
So what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah. Right. Like you might think it's 3 vacations, but maybe it's a week at home where you don't do any work and you just get to enjoy your backyard, which you put hundreds of thousands of dollars into and never sat on or in. That was me this summer. That's a whole other story. It could mean a lot of things. And so that's an interesting point. So let's say you had on your image cycling list, I want to go to Hawaii, I want to go to Italy, and I want to go to Florida. So let's say all of a sudden, your spouse is like, yeah, I booked this trip to Italy. Like that's what happens when you get really clear with the image cycling. You start to do it, like just random stuff. Like all of a sudden, Italy gets booked, and you're like, all right, we didn't really talk about that, but that's awesome, right? And then all of a sudden, you get this unexpected email from a girlfriend who lives in Florida and is like, hey, come and visit me. You're like, okay, great. But Hawaii is like, nothing seems to be happening with Hawaii. Like it's on the list, it's on the list. And you keep looking at it on your list because you have to have the list, right? And part of the image cycling process is updating your list regularly and taking stuff off that you realize you don't want because it does get plugged. And that's very interesting as well. That's something I've learned also. Like if one thing is not really true in your heart's desire, like the whole thing kind of gets brr. And all of a sudden you sit down, you're like, what is it? What is it about Hawaii? And then you realize, like, this is just me personally. Like, we went to Hawaii. I've only been to Hawaii once. It was when I lived in California. It was an not easy, but like 6-hour flight, right? I think 6 hours. Now that I live in Minnesota, the thought of flying to LA first and then probably having a connection, I think there's maybe some direct flights, but it's still like 9 hours, right? 9 hours to get to Hawaii. Do I really want to spend 9 hours on a plane? Maybe I don't. And that's where I'm stuck with it, right? So all of a sudden you go, you know what? Take Hawaii off the list. And then everything else starts to happen. That process, I don't think we practice enough of asking, well, is it even something I really want? And it's okay to take it off the list.
Image cycling to me sounds a little bit like rotating crops.
Kind of, yeah.
And
It
so
has feel to it. There's movement to it. I keep doing this because when you do you want me to break it down for you so
I
you can
do because
you're like, "What the
I
heck?"
see a carousel with a bunch of pictures.
Yes. Perfect. You got it. You nailed it. I like a pinwheel because it moves really fast in the wind. The ideal number of things that you want, goals, is 25. That's what Dr. William Bankston, the founder, that's what he recommended. Have 25 things on your list. I know people who have 90. But the thing is, you have to memorize the list. Do you think I can memorize 90 things? And I mean, I probably could, but anyway, so 25. In the beginning, I recommend like 5 to practice the process. So you'd write those 5 things down so you know what they are, and you write them as if they're already done. Pretty typical manifestation stuff. Could be trip to Hawaii, company revenue, whatever it is, right? So you write those 5 things down. And then you have to have what William Bankston called a gimmick. So something for your goals to ride on. Now, you said carousel because it goes around. It's moving, right? I said pinwheel. So you would just stick a goal. Like, let's say if I had 5 things, I would put those 5 things on the 5 spokes or whatever they're called of
Your pinwheel.
my pinwheel.
That actually works really well. Pinwheel works really well for the visualization here because the pinwheel has 5 spokes.
I didn't even know
Yeah.
that. Well, that's even better. I'm going to use that on Friday. So
You can pay me for that later.
thank you. It's been my favorite. And now my mentor, when we practice with him, he's always like, change your gimmick, change your gimmick, change your gimmick. Because he's like, don't do the same. Bill never wanted ritual. He never wanted things to be the same. My mentor, Eric's like, nope, you got to like change it up, which drives me crazy. And I always go back to the pinwheel. But then what happens is you want the pinwheel to start spinning. So this is interesting. And again, even Dr. William Bankston would never say, oh, I know exactly how this worked or why it worked. He would be like, I have no idea. No one can prove it. He said, I just know that it does work. So then in your mind, you start to spin the pinwheel with your goals on it. And then it starts to go faster and faster. It starts to go fast. You can't see it. It's like, imagine just a blur. But you know what's on there and you know what order it's in. And I just kind of imagine it's kind of just in the back of my head and it's going all the time. Is mine going all the time? No. I'm constantly having to be like, okay, start her up again. Or I look at my list and they like to use the word wallow, like go in there and wallow on each one. And you want to kick it down the curb. So it's always the end result, right? You're seeing the end result of what you want. So you wallow in each one for 5 minutes and then you memorize them in that order and then you let it spin. And then it just spins and spins. My mentor, his is on autopilot. It never stops. He's also a healer. He uses it for the Bankston method, which is something we're not getting into today. But the healers use it to help people with many different kinds of ailments. And it's part of the healing process. They do more than that, but it's just part of it. So it's just a gimmick that they created. He called it a gimmick that helps with this healing process, but can also help every single one of us. And it can personally help you with healing if you're working on other things too. Like when I think about, I like to think it overrides the subconscious and therefore allows things to just go into motion in a different way and start to show up for you in a different way. I don't want to say magical. Some might say that because that's how it feels, but I don't think it's based in science. Like Bill did 20 studies with mice in labs. Like they studied this in the labs. Then they studied people's brains. And there was a true difference when people were image cycling. And when a healer would be image cycling, so if I was your healer, for example, and I'm image cycling and you have something that you're working on that you want to heal, I would connect in with you, just connect in. And then we're connected. I'm image cycling and the healing happens inside of that process. They call it resonant bonding. Now, if you ask Bill, can you explain exactly what resonant bonding? He would laugh. He left the planet this year. I had just met him via Zoom. It was heartbreaking. He was elderly in age and he had given so much. I feel very privileged and grateful that I got to meet him, but he brought something to the planet that a lot of people aren't aware of. So that's one of the things now that I've learned it, that I want to start sharing it with other people because it's tremendously powerful. Simple, not easy, without effort.
Before we started talking, you asked me if I was woo, and I sort of laughed because I don't consider myself woo. So everything that you just described is quantum physics. And the reason why your mentor calls it a gimmick is because all of these ways to tap into quantum physics are just routes to an end.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And there are many different modalities to get there. I guess I believe in the woo.
Well, what if the
I'm
woo
more pragmatic about it.
physics? Yeah, I mean, I I have a podcast called Quantum Revenue Expansion, right? Like I live in the quantum. I love quantum physics. People would say, call me woo in some sense, but I ground everything in science. I want to see the back end of it. I want to understand as much as I can about how something works. And that's what I loved about Dr. William Bankston is he studied everything. He was a scientist. And like that, like he wrote papers. He's well respected. He used to go speak to oncologists about his success with actually curing people, not just remitting them, curing them. And in the beginning, they'd be rolling their eyes, their arms would be crossed, whatever. And then at the end, he would get standing ovations. Now, did the oncologists run back and teach their clients how to image cycle? No, because it doesn't fit their paradigm. It's not standard of care, right? It seems so far out there and unbelievable, but Bill changed a lot of people's lives. And there's practitioners all over the world who are practicing his methods and helping people.
So, as a cancer patient for 11 years, I understand and appreciate that there are people who provide these alternative complementary therapies. And I think there's a lot of value in it, but I also want to caution that chemotherapy
Totally.
and radiation do work.
Bill would always absolutely say, do all the treatments. His system, Bankston method, worked and helped people whether or not they were doing chemo or radiation or any of the things. Just to be fair, he did whatever it was. It didn't matter. And I think to your point, it's like people have to go with what they believe is going to work for them and what's going to help them and what's most aligned and working with their doctors and their oncologists for sure.
My mother was diagnosed with leukemia and she went through treatment. She kept asking the doctor, how long do I have to live? And finally he answered her. It took him a while to answer her because she would ask a lot and he wouldn't answer. And so finally he just said a year. And so a year later, she died. She believed him. She believed the doctor. You need to have a good rapport with your doctor. And you also need to understand how you work. Our brains are amazing. And if they believe something, they make it true. Our brains will make something happen if we believe it's true.
Agreed. I'm so sorry about your mom. Are you familiar with Emoto's work with water?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I was listening to a different
Again,
podcast.
I'm not woo.
Not at all.
I do
Oh,
know.
science fact, right? Scientifically
Okay,
backed.
you know what? Talk about Emoto's work because the listener might not know.
Yeah. So he basically he studied water and he noticed the effects of what your thoughts are on water. And they showed like they would put water in a jar and they would have people say hateful things to it. And then they would look at like the water would get black and gross and they would look at the chemicals under microscopes and not the chemicals, but the molecules. And it just looked angry, I guess is the best word. And then they would have another one where people would say loving things to it. And it would change the molecules in a beautiful way. So my point is to your mom, I was listening to a podcast that Bill Bankston was on, and this woman was she studies water. She studies water. She studied Emoto's work and she's kind of done her own work. And she said something very interesting. She said, our bodies are 90% water. And so when doctors say things to people, they're not just speaking to the brain, they're speaking to the 90% of cells
Oh my
in the
God,
body.
that blows my mind.
I know. I should send you this
If you're listening and not watching, I just put my hands on my cheeks because that was an epiphany moment there. You're right. I mean, she's
She's right.
right.
She's right. I'll send you this. I'm going to make a note because it was
Yeah, I would like to include that study in the show notes.
okay, sure. I don't know that she did a study. This was her observation
Okay, yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah.
based on her science. And then Bill actually, and they were talking about because Bill actually created a whole bunch of other products that are water and they actually charge the water. BankstonResearch.com is fascinating. So you might want to include that on there. People can go down that rabbit hole. All science backed, right? To me, if it's not been studied, then it's out there. But that's why she had him on the show because he has all these water-based products where they charge the products and people get these amazing results, including like stuff around COVID, which we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I know it's controversial, but he does have he has a product called Reform that they studied in the hospital. They gave to COVID patients who went from having COVID to getting out in like 3 days. So much so that the doctors, he said, the doctors and nurses were putting bottles in their pockets to take home. Anyway, I just thought this woman was so brilliant. I was like, because I about a year before that, I'd read a book, because I read all the time. I'm always studying about what doctors say to patients and how it affects them. But it never occurred to me to think, well, we're 90% water, that like that's what the cells are listening to. But yeah, that blew my mind too.
I wear this patch every day. Before I started wearing it, my whole body just hurt all the time. Sitting down hurt, standing for too long hurt, laying down, everything hurt. Everything hurt. I mean, I've been in chemotherapy for 11 years. My body just hurt. And after I started wearing this, I went to the movies. This little patch. I went to the movies. We went and saw Oppenheimer. So it was a 3-hour movie. And when the movie was over, I was dreading getting up because I knew I was going to be in so much pain. And I wasn't in pain.
Wow.
Wasn't in pain. And there's a code on the patch that your skin reads. What this patch does is it sends a message to our brain to help with balance, stability, mobility. And
Oh,
so this has helped me be more mobile. That's the same thing that charged water does. It's the same thing that energy healing does. It helps our cells
yeah.
and our brain find homeostasis. And again, quantum physics, it's
Yeah.
all sorts of different ways to get to the same result.
Yeah.
Because quantum means itty bitty tiny tiny tiny.
Yeah.
So however we can figure out to affect it, we can get to those things. Again, I'm not woo,
No,
but I understand it.
like Bill used to say, you're a skeptic by nature, in the sense of like you're open to other things. You're open to learning. You're open to
Yeah.
maybe we don't know everything we think we know.
We don't. I mean, 6,000 years, people in the East have been practicing acupuncture and they've
Yeah.
mapped these meridians, right? And again, that is all quantum physics. After 6,000 years, I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Seems to be working for them.
You know, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
It's the same way that chiropractic works. They're working on the same meridians that Chinese physicians mapped out 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just as time develops, we come up with new ways to approach the same idea.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, be skeptical. Like if you're listening to,
Always.
I don't think that would work. That's totally okay. I say be
And it
skeptical.
won't. If you don't think it'll work, it probably won't.
Here's what's interesting. Well, Bill Bankston said it doesn't matter if you believe or not. So he used to train. I love him so much. He was one of the funniest people I've ever listened to. But so when he would do these mice studies where they would cure mammary cancer in the lab, he would try to find non-believers. So he would go ask students like, "What do you think about energy healing?" And they'd be like, "I think it's stupid." And he'd be like, "Okay, you're in." Like he found the total non-believers, and then he would teach them his method, and their mice would be cured, and they would be like almost horrified because they're like, "I didn't think any of this stuff would even work." So I think that's really, because that challenged me. I wrote a whole book, Candace, called The Belief Zone. I thought you had to believe something for it to work. Not according to that work, you know what I mean? So that, I don't know, that just makes me giggle because it
So
does help me
you
too.
were introduced to his concepts after you wrote your book.
Yes.
Wow. So did you go back and rewrite your book?
No, I'd have to go rewrite all of them. But I am talking about it, and I'm the first one to be like, here's the thing. A lot of what's in there will still work. I just think what I would add to it is maybe you don't have to believe as much as you thought you had to believe for something to work. That's what I'm finding with the image cycling is like, I don't have to believe that what's on the list 100% is going to happen. Like I'm just not sitting not staring at it. I just make my pinwheel and I let it ride. And that's we might call that surrender in the world of woo, right? I just let it ride and I let go of, it gives me permission to just let it go and watch what shows up. And that's when it gets fun, right? Where you're just in the magic of it.
I hate to bring in politics, but I want to talk about politics for a minute because of where we are right now in the conversation.
I never post about politics or talk about them. So let's see how this goes.
I'm not going to call anybody out. I'm just going to say that there were a lot of folks when you're a politician,
Mhm.
a lot of folks will think it's horrible if you change your mind about something. And to me, someone who believes something with all their heart 1 year, and then 3 years later, after they've learned new things and they've been educated and new ideas have come out and new research has come out, if they haven't changed their mind with all this evidence to show that what they believed was not true, then they're idiots and we shouldn't reelect them. We should reelect the person who adapts to the new ideas and the new concepts and the new information. If you are
Yeah.
given new information and you do not change your mind,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about that? Without the politics end of it.
Yeah,
Do you know
I
what I'm
think
saying, though?
well, yeah, it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah. It's okay to be wrong as long as you and admit it and move on.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, I thought you had to believe every belief for it to happen, and now I don't believe that anymore. Now my new belief is it doesn't matter, but maybe that's why it's happening because I believe it doesn't matter, right? You can go down that whole rabbit hole. But yeah, like we here well, if you're going to play in the world of quantum physics, we could talk about timelines too. Like if you step onto a different timeline, maybe in that timeline, politics are totally different. Or anything is different, right? Like that gets really interesting because we could look at then, well, is it just me as the observer creating based on my beliefs, my background, what I'm grounded in, right? I don't know. There's a lot. That's a big onion to just start to peel. And like,
It is a big onion.
it's fun. But I think at the end of the day, I think be skeptical of what you believe. Really question, is that true? I mean, that's when I look at, when people, I will say this about politics, you will never see me posting politically. I just refuse. And some people are like, that's really selfish because you have a big platform and you could make a difference. Well, part of it is that there's so much fake news out there and there's so much that we don't know. And I don't think there's a left and a right. I think there's a divide and a conquer. I just like it's all so confusing, so mishmashy. So if I were to come like I saw someone I know post something as if it were truth, and I think she lost like a whole bunch of people that love her. Like they got into this big argument. And I just thought, well, maybe she's partially right and maybe the other people are partially right, right? Like we're all kind of right and are part of it. And to really argue about it and lose relationships and um that's just not worth it. It's not worth it. So for me to post something, I'm going to alienate. We already know what the stats are. I'm going to alienate 50% of my list.
Yeah.
50%. And I don't even know that. Do I even believe that's true? Is it true? Do we even know?
Do
Where
we
are we
have
getting?
enough information to know it's true?
What is truth? Let's get real
Yeah.
philosophical. So anyway, that's kind of
As
like,
someone who has been living with cancer for 11 years, I do make my thoughts known on healthcare.
yeah, I mean, and I don't judge anybody who does post. Like, I'm not saying that at all. Like, please, I just, it's just for me to manage my energy. I just haven't. But like, yeah, like you're personally going through something that matters to you and you talk about it. Like, I totally get that. And I respect that. I respect the people that have voices too. Like, it takes guts.
Yeah. It's so funny. I have a whole list of questions that I had written out in advance for this conversation, and I
Uh-huh.
haven't asked you any of them.
That happens a lot though, right?
And we're about the time where we need to wrap up. Well, I was going to ask you about gratitude or grit. Which one do you think gets more credit for your success?
Gratitude or grit?
Hmm. That was one of my
Define,
questions.
yeah, define grit.
Grit is the stick-to-itiveness, the I'm going to get it done anyway.
So if I had to choose one of them, which has gotten to me where I am, I would say gratitude. I have the grit. Like, I don't really think, like, I'll do the grit. I'll do whatever it takes, I guess. I just automatically do that if I really believe in something. But living in gratitude every day and being grateful for my clients, my business, my family, friends, all of those things. I like, what's that? Is it Charlie Brown? Is Pigpen in Charlie Brown?
Yes.
So, when Pigpen walks around, he's got the big cloud behind him. I try to
Hmm.
have my gratitude cloud around me because I found in life that that's what serves me best. Is when I'm not focused on myself, when I'm focused on others. Who can I serve? What am I grateful for?
I think that's kind of a trick question because without gratitude, there is no grit.
Yeah.
That's a trick question. I
All
shouldn't have
right. Well,
asked you. I'm going to go to my questions. What is the limiting belief that you had at the very beginning that didn't serve you and you completely let go of it and
mm,
that opened it up so that you could scale your business?
yeah, that I have to work hard to make money, or that I have to do all the things. Because growing up on the farm, we worked really physically hard all the time, but that definitely didn't serve, right? Didn't serve me. Like I took that to the corporate world and it just kind of made me ill. I was very successful in the corporate world. It's what took me to have my own company someday. But that's when I started my own company, I realized I don't want that belief anymore. I don't want to have to believe I have to work 24/7. And so I've been on a quest now. It's um like I've written down the less I do, the more money flows in. And that's about having a phenomenal team like Trisha, who you've connected with. I have phenomenal team members who would say what they do is their dream job in my company. And Trisha says it constantly. It's like, it's still my dream job. And now I have another company. But I show up for the things that I love to do, and the rest of it I delegate.
My husband and I basically created the concept of selling custom furniture on the internet back in the late 1990s, like 98, 99. The
Well,
idea of selling custom furniture on the internet didn't exist until we created it. And so I spent a lot of, and we had a baby, we launched our business. We found out we were pregnant. We had a baby all in a year. We bought a house. We got married all in one year, the same year. Those early years, it was a lot easier to code a website back then. I taught myself how to code because back in the day, it wasn't as complicated as it is now. But I would put my baby to bed and if I mean like 11 o'clock to 2 in the morning. And sometimes my web designer and I would get online together and we would be developing the thing together from 11 o'clock at night to, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning because she was also a mother of babies. But then during the day, we'd take naps, you
mhm.
know, spend time
Yeah,
with our kids, you know, but we got the work done in the little pocket of time where we could. And
yeah.
we developed something that no one had ever done before. So the limiting belief that you have to work 9 to 5, even when you own your own business, that doesn't serve anybody.
But it's a real thing
Hmm.
because you're just, again, this goes back to subconscious programming. And I know when I started my own business, sometimes I would sit at my desk. I would force myself to sit there for 8 hours. And like, I could have been doing a million other things. And finally, I realized it wasn't the quantity of time, it was the quality of what I was focused on in the X amount of hours that I would work that day.
I offer co-working twice a month on Mondays, and it's 90 minutes, and we do it Pomodoro style, which is 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest. And I literally set the timer, and then when the timer goes off, I say, "Okay, everybody, walk away from your desk and come back in 5 minutes." And
Hmm.
that's really hard for a lot of them that are just starting to join us.
Hmm.
The walking away from the desk part and taking that break is so hard for them. But when you come back, you're renewed.
Yeah.
You know, when I walk away, I go and grab my weights and I lift some weights or I do like a kettlebell throw or whatever, just to get away from the desk and or I stretch
Hmm.
or you go to the bathroom, grab a drink of water. I mean, there's a lot you can do in 5 minutes and you come back and you focus. You don't have to always be on.
No,
Taking those breaks is so important.
I don't, not as it's so important. I think it's critical to your success.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys know, like, you sit there so long staring at your computer, you just eventually your brain's just like not doing it's just like kind of starts to shut down. You start to shut down. So
Yeah.
I love that taking 5 minutes every, did you
Yeah.
say 20?
It's 25 Pomodoros, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest.
Got it.
So, and then technically you do it 4 times and then you take a big break. That's the whole Pomodoro technique, but we're only doing co-working for 90 minutes. But it's really interesting how much work we get done in the
Yeah.
in the amount of time that and I don't allow anybody to talk. It's like the only time we ever talk is when the timer goes off. Okay,
Yeah.
walk away because you're there to work. All right,
Yeah. Okay.
Ursula.
Mm.
You've experienced tremendous success. 5 best-selling books, building a 7-figure business, coaching thousands of entrepreneurs. When you look back at your journey, what's one moment or person you're deeply grateful for that shifted the trajectory of your business in a way that you didn't expect at the time?
It was before I had it was the reason, it became the reason I had my business. But back up to finished college, couldn't get a job. So I was working at Pier 1 Imports, making $6.25 an hour with my girlfriend, Jana. And Jana's like, hey, I got this opportunity for us. We can move to Boulder, Colorado and live in the foothills with my uncle, Will, and his wife, Carol. They just sold their company to IBM for about $10 million. They had some business partners and they successfully sold their company. They're empty nesters. And they said, come and stay with us and we can work at the Pier 1 there. So I was like, let's go. So moved to Colorado, which was a big shift. And for me, it was meeting Jana's uncle. He blew up all my limiting beliefs about what it meant to be wealthy, what it meant to be an entrepreneur. Because I had all this like, oh, if you have money, you're greedy, or all this stuff. And he sat me down one day and he said, what are your plans for the future? What's next? Kind of code for you can't live here probably forever, right? And I said, I don't know. I think at that time I wanted to go to law school. That was the plan. So I was trying to save money to go to law school. I put myself through college. And he looked at me and he's like, Carol and I would be happy to pay for that for you. Now, there was nothing in this Lutheran farm kid from southern Minnesota that could ever have said yes to that level of generosity. There was no way. I was like, Will, I couldn't accept a gift like that. And he said, because I believe I had to work hard for everything. He goes, I understand. May I offer you some advice? And I was like, yes, please. And this was it. He said, get a job in outside sales and you can do anything. He goes, with your communication, your psychology background, your leadership skills, he's like, you'd be phenomenal in outside sales. And then you could have your own company someday if you wanted to. Now, no one had ever said that to me. That wasn't even like on my radar. And he planted a seed in me that turned into all of this. And I bless him. He actually passed a few years later after he retired, which was heartbreaking. And I know it happens to a lot of people for whatever reason. It's not going to happen to us or anyone who's listening, but he just brought so much beauty and grace to the world. So when I look back at that moment, that was it. I'm so grateful to Will. And I couldn't even spell outside sales. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea. And he said, go update your resume and send it to me. I'll send it to people I know. This is what's crazy, Candace. And this, you don't even have to believe in the woo. We can call this quantum physics. But I went back to work at Pier 1 Imports. And a woman came through wearing a nice business suit. Her name was Christine. We started talking. She's like, what are you doing here? And I go, well, eventually I'm looking for a job in outside sales. Didn't even know what that meant. She said, we're hiring. I was like, well, what do you sell? She said, computer training and consulting. I go, oh, like inside I was like, I'm a psych, graduate. Like my degree's in psychology and communication. I don't know anything about technology, but I didn't disqualify myself. I interviewed and they hired me. So I never even sent my resume to Will. He was like, oh, that's an amazing opportunity. And I went from being an outside sales rep to president of a $27 million company in 5 years. And then eventually the company was sold off and I started my own company. But that was all because of Will, who I'm so grateful to.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for pioneering women who understand that gratitude is a business strategy. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. To connect with Ursula Mentjes, check out the show notes. This is episode 299. I've been your host, Candace Rodarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.